introduce myself. My name is Lee Ann Rutherford, and I am the reading coach at Mays Road Elementary and Northtown Elementary. My principal's back there. A big shout out. And so that's who I am.
I'm Noreen Buckley, and I'm the reading coach at Moore Elementary on the South.
Well, welcome to our session on the acquisition of vocabulary, and hopefully you're ready to have a little bit of fun today, because that's what we think our session is. It's pretty fun. Obviously. The theme for our session is really about discovering the magical power of words, hence the word wizard hat. So we are word wizards of sorts today, and we really want to talk to you this morning about how to build a robust and strong vocabulary with your child at home, because that tends to be something that signifies a really great reader, somebody who has a great vocabulary, a really rich vocabulary. Well, how do we acquire a really rich vocabulary? How do we do that? We don't want children just to memorize words, because by memorizing words, they don't really stick with us, do they? If you're like me, I'm always trying to get smarter. So I have, my handy dandy app on my phone called, the vocabulary word of a day. Do any of you ever do that? Well, when, I get that little blurb on my screen of some new word, it doesn't really stick with me. I can't remember what the word was from yesterday. The reason why is because I'm not really using it in my daily language. I have really no connection to that word at all. I don't have a context in which really to use that word. So what happens? I see it, it goes in my brain, it just falls right out. It doesn't stick with me at all. It's that kind of same thing with memorizing words. Like our children, you might say, well, I just talked to you about that word the other day. Well, if we aren't really using it in the context of maybe a story or really using it in our daily life, it doesn't stick. So that's what we want to talk to you about today, about how do we get those words really stuck in our students' brains and therefore in their vocabulary. So what we plan on doing today is giving you some really fun and practical things that you can do at home with your child. So we will probably ask for some participation, so I hope you're ready to participate a little bit. Okay. But you're going to scroll down to the very bottom of the page and see this little box up here, and it's at the very bottom that says site search. You're going to type in the words book flicks. And I have it right here on the whiteboard because it's spelled kind of funny. But you're going to type in book flicks. That book flicks site is going to come up, hopefully, crossing our fingers for technology. There it is. Wonderful. And as book flicks comes up, instead of clicking on the little guy, which is what we're used to doing, you're actually going to click on the words book flicks. So it's a little odd. You want to click there. Now, book flicks is a great website for you to be able to access some of the books that we have listed in your packet. We've given you an intermediate book list of some really prolific, wonderful authors that you can access some of their books on this site.
And have some fun.
We have lots of sounds.
Read a book
The book that we're going to feature today in our session is Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. So we're playing on that theme again. And you're going to see that on this site we have lots of different categories of books. And the way that we're going to access Sylvester and the Magic Pebble is that we're going to go down to Family and Community. We're going to click on that. Now, hopefully, because we have a few kids in the room, you guys can give us feedback whether you think this is a cool site or not. Okay, I know Grace will give us some feedback for sure. Noreen's going to go down to the tab that says 45 through 48. That's where you're going to access Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. That's one of the books that we're featuring today. You're going to see it's pretty neat that it is also offered in Spanish, if English is not your first language. And they have the book Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, and they do this with all of their books, paired with a nonfiction selection too, because we want to build that vocabulary in the nonfiction sense as well. So we're going to click on Sylvester and the Magic Pebble and let you see what this website actually does. Okay? And my lovely principal is going to attend to the sound. And do you mind hitting maybe one of the lights back there?
Sylvester and the Magic Pebble.
You're going to see that the text runs along the bottom and highlights the words.
Father at the Acorn Hill. One of his hobbies was collecting pebbles of unusual shape and color.
Great vocabulary, unusual.
On a rainy Saturday during vacation, Sylvester found quite extraordinary.
Another great vocabulary word.
As he was studying this remarkable pebble, he began to shiver, and the rain felt cold on his back. I wish it would stop raining. In all his young life, Sylvester had never had a wish gratified so quickly. It struck him that magic must be at work, and he guessed that the magic must be in the remarkable-looking red pebble. To make a test, he put the pebble on the ground. I wish it would rain again.
Pause it. Do you mind turning it down and turn the lights back on for us? So we just wanted to give you a little taste of what BookFlix does. So kids, what do you think? Does it look like a pretty interesting site that you would like? Kind of, yes, no? Yeah, I see some shaking of heads. Okay, this is a great, yeah, there are lots of great books on there, but it's a great website too because I'm a third grade parent like all of you. I'm in the throes of it right there with you with the third grade guarantee and all of that. I feel the pressure. I totally understand. But this is a great site because if you're cooking dinner and you're trying to multitask, our kids love being on computers, right? They love it, the tablets, the smartphones, all of that. I think my kids know how to do more things on my phone than I do. Great way to get them engaged with a text. Now, nothing replaces sitting down and reading with your child. I mean, that's a really precious and wonderful time, and the quality of doing that is it's extraordinary. But this is another way that you can access texts with your children. So does that make sense? And you think this might be a site that you could use? It wasn't really, I don't think, too hard to navigate. And again, if you need help after this, your Columbus Metropolitan Library librarians definitely can help you access this. They know how to do this. They're very well versed on that. So that's the first thing that we wanted to share with you because we always want to tie in technology. But so say you've read this book or you did it on BookFlix. What do you do with all of that information next, right? Remember I said we wanted to keep it so that those words are really sticky in our kids' brains. We want it to stick. So if you want to turn in your packet, and there is a template or a picture of something called a word wand. There are two of them on a page. So if you want to turn to that so that you can see the word wands, again, still playing on that theme of magic. What we did with the book Sylvester and the Magic Pebble was we identified 5 words that we felt were really great vocabulary to touch on with your child. Now, of course, there are many more in that book, as there are, in a lot of the books that we're sharing with you. But we've tried to highlight 5. You also have an intermediate book list in your packet where we've taken the work out of it for you. You don't have to sit and search, okay, let me find some vocabulary words in this book. We've highlighted, again, some really prolific authors, some great books for you to read with your child, and we picked out the vocabulary for you. So you're going to write down those vocabulary words on your word wand. Now, what do we do with them after that? This is where the fun is. After you have written those words down, and my friend Noreen has already cut those up for me, you're going to cut each one of those words off. And you're going to start collecting them in something we call a word jar. Now, we didn't give you word jars today because you can make a word jar out of anything. Mine is a peanut butter jar that came out of my my cabinet. You can use a coffee can. Noreen made hers a lot cuter than mine. But you can use anything. You can use a plastic Ziploc baggie. You can use anything. You want to start collecting those words because we don't want to just read them in a story and never think about them again. We want them to be embedded in our daily conversation. And so the nice thing about a word jar, you can take it with you anywhere. Stuff it in your bag as you're going to sit at the dentist office for hours and hours and hours. And you can, do word sorts with them, finding out how certain words are alike or different. Ask your child about synonyms or antonyms to these words. If you're like me and we're going on a road trip, do your kids ever say, "Are we there yet?" You can throw this in the back seat and they can play some games with the words in the word jar. They can quiz each other. They can, again, do word sorts. So the nice thing about word jars is that they're portable. So does that make sense? So you're going to take those words, write them on your word wand, and start to collect them in your jar. Now, what's the point of doing that? That doesn't sound very fun, does it, Grace? Not very fun at all. This is where the fun happens. How many of you have ever played that game Headbands? Or you've seen it at Target? Have any of you ever seen it? It's where you have that little strip that goes around your head and you got a card plastered to the front of your head. You're laughing because I think you've played it before. So Noreen has put on one of the headbands that we gave you when you came in. And we are not calling ours headbands. We're calling ours brain bands. So you're going to take these words that are in your word jar and you're going to pick out one. And you're going to stick it on your child, or your child can, am I pulling your hair? I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Or your child can stick it on your
I
head.
can see it, but I can't, so don't tell me.
Okay. So I'm then going to give Noreen clues about what that word is. So when you ask questions and you're really curious, maybe like a detective.
Oh, like inquire?
Inquire. She got it correct. So you're going to use, you can use tokens, beans, pennies, anything you want to use. She got that correct, so she gets a token. Then we'll switch roles. I'll wear the headband, and then she'll give me clues. Noreen made a great point at the last session. You don't want always your child to be on the receiving end. You want them to give you clues because that forces them to have to use those words in context and to really deepen their comprehension, not only of the book that they're relating it to, but also causing those words to stick in their brain.
And basically it's a synonym word, a synonym game. So that's what the words are that you're going to be asking about, are synonyms to this word. So it's really good practice for them. So make sure everybody gets to play.
So those are the games that we came up with. I also wanted to highlight another game that you can find at Target or Walmart. I think I spent $5 on this one. Again, I like it in a can so I can throw it in the back seat of the car or things like that. It's called Apples to Apples, if you've ever seen it. And it helps your child build vocabulary and have to describe things using really rich vocabulary and adjectives. So that's another resource that you could use to help build vocabulary. So my part of the session is over. Noreen, I'm going to pass this to you so that you can do some talking. And I don't know if you want to stick that in your pocket.
Can I set it down here? Will that work? Okay. Okay, all I wanted to do was spend a little bit of time with this packet because we tend to pass things out to people and they stick it in their bag and they take it home. I want you to really take a good look because this is your resource. This is what you're going to go to when you need some ideas. So on the very first page, the very first one is Columbus Metropolitan Library. We can't push that enough. They are here today. If you don't have a library card, your child doesn't get a library card, sign up. And if you have a problem with fees, talk to them, get that worked out. They'll take care of that today so that your children can get to the library and use all the resources that they have. And obviously BookFlix is one of the ones you saw today. Also at the bottom of that page is Harcourt School Publishers. The books that we use in Columbus City Schools are called Storytown for our reading program in the elementary schools. And this is a website called Think Central, and it tells you how to get on it. It'll give you activities. You can choose the grade level that your child's in and give you lots of information about...
You're covering your mic.
I'm sorry, I forgot I had it on. Lots of information about the stories that they're reading at school. So you can get a little more information when they say, I read whatever story, and you go, oh, let's get on and see what you did today. So that's kind of a nice site. Next page. I know kids in here know PBS Kids. They have it on at school all the time. Okay, well, there are a lot of sites here, very kid-friendly. I'm not familiar with all of them, but many of them I have been on, and they're very good. So, you know, we want to monitor what our kids are doing on the computers. This is some good stuff that they can have fun with, but still learn, and that's the most important thing. All right, next page. As you know, we are talking about the OAA all the time at school. And our children are practicing with practice tests, and we're practicing passages, and parents are being told, we've got to get that OAA test, and you have to pass that reading test. Well, this is a site that you can go to. The Ohio Department of Education has a ton of information. But this site, at home, you can have your child take practice tests. It'll get you to see what it's going to look like. So this is a lot of information about the test. And again, I'm not going to read it to you, but it's all the directions. It tells you where to go and what to click on and what to do. Now, at our last session, a lady came up to me afterwards and said, you know, you should really mention to the parents when they get on the ODE site to look at the, also to the park site. She felt that they should start because our test is going to be changing. So we could probably spend 30 minutes in here talking about the ODE site. There's so much information in there. So get on that, but this definitely will give you...
This is the acronym for PARK that Mrs. Buckley is mentioning, PARK. So if you even Google that, you can find information about how the testing is changing.
And let's see, there's a couple more. The next pages were those books. Vocabulary boosters. You know, obviously, talking about vocabulary, we've got to do it all the time. We have to use it. We have to read the book, play the games with it. But you don't have time to do that always. So if Dad's working on the car and he's taking tire pressure, using vocabulary words, and your child sees that, he's going to understand, and he's going to put that in his vocabulary. Oh, I know how to check the tire pressure. I know where the radiator is. Whatever, moms, you're cooking, or dads in the kitchen making eggs, you get the whisk out. You take, you check on the temperature of the eggs. You use a thermometer. In your talking with your child, that's when you bring in rich vocabulary. And again, the more they have, the better they can read. So there's, you know, the whole idea of read aloud we've talked about. As much of that as you can do as possible, but there's other ways of bringing in vocabulary, and that's talking as you do things, telling your stories of when you were a child. Lots of things you can talk about. Increase the depth and breadth of your attention. There was one more. In the packet is this chart, and this is not a very good copy of it, but it's so important that I had to show it to you anyway, because this tells you right here, this is statistics, this is proven. The more your child reads, the better they will do on their tests. Okay? If a student reads 20 minutes a day at home, 3,600 minutes per school year, 1,800,000 words per year, all of that reading is going to make them score in the 90th percentile. That is just a fact. You know that without me showing you this chart, but sometimes we have to be reminded. The fewer they read, options 50th percentile, and the ones that don't read at home and don't read at school, 10%. And that's every year, and it just grows and grows and grows. So I really, I feel very strongly about that reminder to us that kids have got to read comic books, cartoons, the newspaper. I mean, it doesn't have to be a book from the library, but it would be nice if it was some of the times. But there's lots of things to read.